Mordechai,
Yes.
how are you? Tzipporah,
Excellent.
how are you? Ariel, tell us about yourself. You're a writer?
Yeah, I'm a writer, speaker, Rabbinical student here in Jerusalem.
Where you study?
I was studying for the last 4.5 years, I was studying by Or Sameh.
Or Sameh, Scheinberg.
No, Rabbi Schiller.
Schiller,
He's our Rosh
okay.
Yeshiva. And but as I was there, I turned into like a teacher, and I was teaching in different programs there, and learned at other yeshivas as well. I learned by Kola, by the Mir Yeshiva, but mostly like teaching. And so teaching. I teach a lot of like hashkafa, a lot of musar. I talk a lot about my journey to Judaism and my path to Judaism, and I always tie in different things that are going on, whether it's the weekly parsha or something in the Gemara or whatever that.
So let's start with that.
Yeah.
So you were born in LA.
Yeah. Well, I was born in Ohio.
In Ohio.
And then I moved to LA when I was 2.
And you were born Christian.
No, my parents were Christian. When I was born, my parents were considered like in a Muslim home.
Muslim?
Yeah.
You were born Muslim.
Yeah.
And so, all right, tell us the process.
Yeah. So basically, my parents grew up in very like Christian homes. So my grandparents were like very Christian. On my mother's side, actually, they were like very like stark Christians. They built churches, and he was my great grandfather was a preacher. The whole thing. And anyways, long story short, my parents were in America, like in college in the 70s. And in the 70s, it was like a very like radical time. There was a lot of what they call like the hippie movement and, openness or whatever. And so my parents, like a lot of African Americans wanted to kind of get away from the church. They, at the time, there was a lot of racism in America, and a lot of it in their mind was like supported by Christianity, And so a lot of intellectuals that were black at that time were just kind of like, opening new things, and some of them got into Islam, some got into Buddhism, some even got into Taoism. And so my parents got into Islam, but they got into a very specific type of Islam, which is called Sufism.
Sufism.
Where they got into Sufism.
Give us a little background about Sufism.
Yeah, so Sufism, I'm not an expert on it, but Sufism is
people will know.
My parents really were into the idea of working on yourselves as people, less than religious doctrine. And so my parents were like really into like, going to therapy and working on yourself and self-discovery and eating healthy and meditation and mindfulness, exactly. So that's the home we grew up in. And they connected to the Islamic idea as like having one God versus like the Trinity or Jesus on the cross, whatever. And so they
going direct.
Yeah, they wanted to go direct in that source. And so we grew up in that home, but we never really grew up in any like per se Islamic institutions, or we never used to go to like a mosque. We weren't a part of things like that. We just did everything in home. And my parents would hire different teachers to come in and teach us different things. We learned, Arabic language. I can't speak anything now, but when I was young, we learned Arabic and we learned about things in the Quran and these different ideas. But it was more from a spiritual perspective. And then as we got older, myself and my family, we stumbled upon the Kabbalah Center in Los Angeles, and that was like in my like latter like teens. We stumbled upon it, and so we just fell in love with it because it was kind of like the first system where with Rabbi Berg,
family.
Yeah, with the Berg family, exactly. And actually, even my mom eventually worked for the Kabbalah Center and did a lot of different projects and whatnot. But we were there for like almost like 9 years, and so that really shaped a lot of my latter teens and in my 20s, and then I eventually left there in.
May I ask a question?
Please, yeah, please.
I know, in certain parts of the world, people don't like those questions.
Yeah.
Especially in Canada, for example.
Okay.
What's the descendant of your parents?
Yeah, so on my mom's side, they're like American Indians. They're mostly American Indians and
Like Native Americans.
Native Americans, yeah.
That's your mom's side.
That's my mom's side. And on my dad's side, a lot of them originate actually from, they were Irish. And they were considered what they call like Black Irish.
Yeah, but the Black Irish.
Yeah, the Black Irish that eventually came from Spain and these types of places. So it's like that, and there's intermixing with African Americans and Europeans, and so we have a lot of different parts of us, but the strongest parts are Irish and then American Indian. I mean, obviously African American.
Amazing. So you guys, your teens in the Kabbalah shape you as more of a spiritual person rather than religious.
Definitely.
Connected more to the spirituality than rather to specific type of stream.
Yeah, exactly.
You're kind of like an outcast of the religious world, but a main cast of spiritual world because you've been through a journey, and that's what spirituality is all about. And your wife, Tzipporah, when you guys met?
We met last year around June.
But
we were friends on social media and everything for about almost 4 years now.
4 years, wow.
Since 2017.
Yeah.
And we've become closer over the time, but we had taken a break in the beginning, like we took one day and then later we did another after a friend of his, mutual friend, had a wedding, and we all decided to continue from there, and that was like a year process, and everything's been good since.
Actually, this Shabbat, which is a Tu B'Av, would be our engagement anniversary.
Wow!
Yeah.
Congratulations!
Yeah.
Everybody sends blessings. And your upbringing? You have also interesting story.
Yeah, I was friends since basically when I was like very little, so ever since then I've been keeping everything.
Where you grew up?
I grew up in Texas. In Houston. And I was in Jewish day school there, and I lived there until I was like 12, 13, and I went to Oregon, and my family are diplomats, so they travel.
So you've been all over the world?
I've been everywhere. in Europe since for about 6-7 years now. So.
And what brought you here?
I wanted to finally settle down in a place that was our own as a people, so I felt why not put a place in Israel.
Beautiful. So you guys live here now?
Yeah.
We're in Jerusalem?
Yeah, we live right in Jerusalem, right around the corner from the old city.
So you see yourself as a converted? Or?
Yeah, I don't really see, but the thing is, I talk about that a lot, it's just like, the word convert is more of a secular term, and it's more connected to Christianity and Islam. Judaism refers to a ger, and a ger is, in English means stranger. And so when a person takes on the Torah, they take on a whole other system of living. They take on another time system, they take on another eating system, they take on another system of what's important versus what's not important. So they become, in essence, a stranger to the masses of society. And that's what Abraham Avinu and Sarah Mena were. They were strangers to the whole world, and it was just them. And so a person who becomes a stranger takes on the name Ben Avraham or Bat Sarah. It doesn't take on B'nai Israel. My name is Mordechai Yosef B'nai Israel. It's Mordechai Yosef Ben Avraham. So the Torah says, the Halakha says, that someone who is a Ben Avraham or Bat Sarah can marry B'nai Israel because of their spiritual level and their connection to Avraham Avinu, but it's still somewhat different. So I never really converted to, yes, I'm Jewish, if you put it on paper, but the way that the word Jewish is also a modern term. You know what I mean? It was something that was created by the Romans to describe the people in Judea and Samaria. So when we say Israel, yes, I converted to the Torah, and the Torah makes me one with B'nai Israel, but I'm still a descendant of Avraham Avinu, as well as B'nai Israel.
You're a Hebrew man. In a way.
Yeah, exactly. That idea, but I think it's an important distinction because it's like, yes, in a classical term today, yes, I'm 100% Jewish.
One of the reasons we call this place Fifth Quarter, and we heard that there was a Fifth Quarter here before of the Moroccans, where is now the Kotel area. It used to be called the Fifth Quarter, now it's called the Mugrabim area, and that's few other businesses here, galleries, call themselves Fifth Quarter. for us, it was not necessarily just like a nice, funny name.
Yeah.
It was about connected to encounters of the fifth kind, or experiences of the fifth kind.
Yeah.
Or the place where, he says you're more spiritual, you have more spiritual journey than religious journey.
Yeah, exactly.
And when we are speaking with each other, sometimes I meet here Muslims or Christians or yogis or skeptical people. Mm-hmm. Everybody can speak about what we said, the fifth dimension, or what is the supernatural experiences that are not necessarily materialistic.
Yes.
And you're here for 5 years, you told me, right?
Yeah, 5 years.
Yeah. What type of experiences you had from that, journey? I'm not talking about Jerusalem syndrome now or stuff in that matter, but just like a little miracles that.
I met my wife. That was
that's
a
always
big
a nice
miracle.
Or not. It's okay to have.
It's like endless. Just so many, just living here for so long, things working out, growing in the Torah, finding, I feel like I found myself. After I converted, I was just kind of like, I was like in this like weird like state, you know what I mean? Like I didn't really know, I grew up like working as an executive producer in Hollywood, you know what I mean? I've done feature films, on the business side.
Yeah, so maybe tell us about that a little bit.
Yeah, but,
the point where, you got that spark.
I got a lot of that spark, I was at the Kabbalah Center with Rabbi and that whole thing, and and when I look back on it, one of the things I gained the most out of being, because I was there when the Rav was there and his whole family. And he's a very controversial figure, as I know. But one of the things that I got out of being at the Kabbalah Center is that he opened up a world where I was able to see the kind of like the pain of the world, and then also like the greatness, the potential of the world. And so like I was like, I grew up in Los Angeles, my parents were very like successful people and, very accomplished. So I was like, lived in a very like sheltered reality in a lot of ways. And so when I met the Rav Berg, in blessed memory, he showed me that like the world is suffering, the world is confused. That's why people are murdering each other. That's why we see war. That's why part of the world has wealth and another part of the world is living in famines. And that's why there's disease and that's why there's racism and there's all this. This is all sickness that exists in the world, that people are hurt, and the antidote from it, with his perspective was that people having this expanded consciousness, this fifth column, this expanded consciousness to see the holisticness and the humanness and the souls of all these people, and his presentation was that Kabbalah was the answer for that, and even people who were not Jewish didn't have to keep the 613 mitzvahs, but just having this expanded consciousness that me and you are both souls, and everything around us is alive. Nature is alive, animals alive. Everything's alive. Everything's a spark of God, and we have a responsibility to be good people and to care. So that opened me up, and so me becoming Jewish, because I'm Jewish, I just like to put the context to what my Judaism is from the Torah perspective, which isn't just I'm a convert. No, there's a big sugya behind it. But the point is just saying, when I converted to Judaism, I was taking on the responsibility of being part of the fixing of the world. That's why I wake up every morning.
You remind me something that I read today in the morning about Chafetz Chaim.
Okay.
Big genius.
Yeah.
He was always saying about Messiah, back in the days. And the rabbi of the yeshiva, one day woke up in the morning, tell him, like, I have enough potatoes for the winter, I have enough wood, I even have a little meat for Passover. I'm good, why do I need Messiah? And it became a whole argument that if you're okay, you feel good, why you ask for more? Why you need that thing, the fifth day, like something more, than. And Chafetz Chaim let the argument go around, and then they came back to him and asked him, what you think about it? He's like, if everybody was like you, Mr. Rabbi, then we don't need Messiah. But most people are not like you. They don't have potatoes. They don't have meat for Passover. So we were looking, for that extra
push.
Extra push for them. And that's reminding me what you said, that, like to do this extra push.
And even that, I think one of the most powerful arguments is that, like, like we're having tea and, we had probably something for breakfast or these types of things. And it's just like, okay, those things fill the body, but we have a neshama, and it's like the neshama is a real entity. And so the question is, what do we have that fills our neshama? Like, okay, I get the body, I get the mind, I could read a lot of books and fill my mind, I could eat a lot of food, I could hang out with my wife, I could do all types of things that, for the body, but the soul itself, what exists that gives me the ability to fill the soul? What technology do I have that fills the soul? And that's when you take away the Torah from the religious aspect. The religious aspect is about preserving and maybe even some levels control and these types of things. But when you strip away that part and you see, like, wait, I have a soul that has 613 parts, and each of these different parts of my soul can be fulfilled by doing these particular actions, mind, spirit, and in action, and then be doing that. Now I plug my soul into this infinite, this fifth column of existence, where I can actually now fill my soul, because I grew up in, like I said, I worked in Hollywood. I grew up in a very affluent area, in California, and we were one of the, I think, 7th most affluent area in America. But our high school had the second highest drug rate in the state of California. And so, like, why?
How do you explain it?
Because if you don't have the tools to fill your soul, you're going to be empty. And if you're empty, you're going to feel anything that you could do to fill that void. You're going to just be fiending for whatever. Why do people have tons of money want to destroy for more money? You don't have enough money? What do you need to destroy these people for? Because there's something lacking inside of the soul, and that fever, that pain of the lack of the soul can make people destroy other people and God forbid, and destroy themselves as well.
They've done a research in Portugal more than a decade ago. They brought 2 cages, maybe you heard of it. 2 cages, 1 cage with rats and 2 type of water. 1 water with drugs for rats and regular water. After a few days, 95% of the rats were addicted to the drugged water. Then they created another cage with cheese around here, a little area that looks like a jungle, another area with lady rats, stuff that they can run around, and then they put 1 water with drugs for rats, 1 water, regular water. Only 5% got addicted. Based on this research and a few more, they regulated and decriminalized all drugs in Portugal.
Wow.
You can be an addict, get over it, and go work for the government.
Exactly.
And they realized that along the year, it's still in process, the research is why, we still have only Portugal like that, but it's coming in a few states in America right now.
Oregon just did.
It's already...
Oregon has legalized all drugs.
That you give chances to people, they get out of it.
100%.
If you don't give them a chance, what do you have to do?
They're going to go back.
Just like continue that loop.
And that's what happened, unfortunately, with the African American community in America. It's just like it's systematic, whatever the reasons are. The bottom line is that what you just described is exactly what happened. I think it's 72%. America has the largest prison population in the world, and I think it's 72%, maybe a little bit less, a little bit more, are drug-related offenses. And so you're literally incarcerating people. Now they legalized or decriminalized marijuana to a lot of degrees, but I mean, in the 80s and 90s, marijuana, they use that to incarcerate, millions and millions of minorities, in America, and literally destroyed a generation. Now, I'm sure some of the same people who own these private prisons also are in the cannabis business now. So it's really sad.
Yeah, in Hebrew it's different than English. There's a difference between drug and a medicine. Right? Samim, it's drugs.
Yeah.
Trufa, it's medicine. While in English, everything is just drugs.
Everything is drugs. Yeah.
Like whether you take Optalgin or anything else. You write a book now, right?
Yeah, I have a book coming out. It's titled Mind of the Black Jew.
Mind of the Black Jew.
Yeah. And
sounds fantastic. Mind of the Black Jew.
Yeah. And so I have a publisher, which is Corin, which is a very popular publisher. They publish a lot of Sidurim and a lot of books, but I'm going to be releasing it as an NFT in the next week or so. And I'm going to release a limited edition on there. But the whole point is that I wanted to accomplish a couple of things. One, with the title, Mind of the Black Jew, I wanted people to get away from the sensationalism of like, you're black and you're Jewish, and be like, let's get past that and let's get into the intellect. Like, let's get into my mind. Let's get into the other.
To the fifth column.
Into the fifth column, exactly. Let's get into that place and out of the superficiality of my presentation, which is unique in Judaism, very nice. But I wanted to do that. And I also feel just as a whole, like with African Americans, the intellectual prowess, the strength that African Americans have shown to go through slavery, to go through segregation, and still produce such prolific thinkers and people who question even the Constitution and different things in America. I feel that myself and many other African American Jews are an extension of that brilliance, and that talent. And so I wanted to like really categorize, my thinking, but my thinking is no different than any other Jews thinking that, is involved in the Torah. You know what I mean? And so the book itself I don't really talk about race at all. I talk about the thinking process of things that I saw. Like I use a premise, and this connects to the fifth column. I use a premise of quantum physics. And quantum physics says that the human eye sees less than 1% of reality. And the human eye actually doesn't see anything. It actually absorbs light particles, and in the back of the brain, it sends those light particles, and then that's where images are formed. So the reality that we experience has to do with the genetic information that's inside of our bodies. So like whatever life experiences you had or your family had, is like when you walk in a room, that's the byproduct of it. And so quantum physics also says that there's a whole 99% that's happening around us that we can't see, that we're experiencing all the time, and they call it string theory, which is vibrational waves of energy. So this ties in perfectly to what the Torah teaches us, what Judaism teaches us, which is, we have a finite body, which is say the 1% reality, but then there's a 99%, which is our soul, that literally extends all the way to the heavens, even though we're standing here in this world right now. And then all around us right now is what they call, there's energies coming down all the time from the upper worlds, from the heavens, and call it Shefa, and sometimes Kedusha, and these different things. And so the tools that Hashem gave us was this ability to, through our Torah, to elevate the dashmis, which is the physicality, and elevate it to a place of ruchnis, which is this 99%, which is the ultimate connection. For example, Tu B'Av, right? It's coming up this week. I'm speaking about it, is it tonight?
Yes.
Okay, I'm speaking about it tonight in Emek Rafayim. I'm giving a shir.
Wow, beautiful.
Yeah,
Where at?
It's right off of Emek Rafayim.
Right there. It's like Crimea Fort.
Crimea.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm speaking there tonight, and actually Tzipporah does. She works with J.I.C. and she does all my production.
Maybe tell us a little bit about your work.
I do a lot of like Q-based work and like digital content through and like outreach and like movements with like helping like Rabbinim and people to get together with people and like to connect them more to
Rabbinim with just
people
that are
connecting Torah to like people who need it and
to bring in those who are not ready.
People who are not or people who just are searching and they're looking for something more spiritual. And the idea is to really to create a space where like using digital content and like the ideas and the inspiration and the reality of the Torah, which really brings a lot of like different real truths into the world, and it creates like a space for them to feel comfortable with themselves and like find that truth. A lot of people, like as you were saying, was a lot of people have a lot of issues with creating like that void and like creating a space for like spirituality, which is really what they're searching for, but they mistake it for like physicality because there's nothing really there for them. And a lot of like the business world and then the people who like are just really famous or really just wealthy and just don't have anywhere for that to go outside of where they
How do you find them?
A lot of just like outreach and like a lot of sense is just like posting and making sure that your stuff is out there, and a lot of that's just like
And they reach out to you.
they reach out and sometimes like I just like connect them to like more like like shirim and to different things and like how to like people to connect themselves more with like their inner truths in that way, and it's like really powerful for me to like just to see the transformation of people. A few people I've seen have like transformed their lives from that, just from like just.
What's the name of the? It's a movement. It's a group.
It's a lot of organizations. So
well, right now the organization we're working with is J.I.C.
Right.
J.I.C. Yeah, if you look up J.I.C. They've been in business. I mean, they've been an organization that's been doing outreach. They hired me as a speaker to work with them, and then they hired support to manage production. And so I've been given a weekly share on Wednesday nights. I was going to say with Tu B'Av,
in Yarmulke? No.
In Emek Rephaim.
In Emek Rephaim.
But also Tel Aviv. We've done a lot of things in Tel Aviv.
Do you have a website or something like that, or an email, or?
Well, the best way to reach me is through social media, which is.
All right, we will.
What's
your name?
Yeah, Mordechai Ben Avraham. Yeah,
all right,
exactly.
we will have that.
But I was saying with Tu B'Av, which the sages say is the happiest day of the year, connects to this idea of light and vessel from the standpoint of Av is a month is fire, right? It's the sun. It's a month of fire. There's a lot of intensity, fire. And so on the 15th of Av, you have the moon. It's a full moon, right? And so on that full moon, the moon itself is a kli, it's a vessel. So what happens on the 15th of Av is that power of the light of Av comes down and connects to the moon, which is a vessel, and it creates a complete harmony between both, and then that's what makes everything happy. And that's the same thing with the soul and the body. When we connect the soul's desires and the body's desires together, that's when we achieve a level of fulfillment. Even if we're going through the worst difficulties around us, we'll achieve a level of fulfillment, and then that allows us to actualize our true potential as human beings. And that's the point. That's the whole concept of us being alive. It's not just to live, and then not just, people say you got a tikkun, you got to overcome your tikkun, but it's really to actualize your ultimate potential as a human being, and that's the technology of the Torah. It's just like, and my argument would be, what other technologies exist in the world that can allow us to actualize it? Like I said, like my mom's a professor, my sister's a professor, my grandparents were academics. That's very good. But none of them can tell you how to actualize who you are as a person. In fact, my mom, who's a professor who trains professors, who people become professors in education, she said that the student is never even asked what they think themselves into the postgraduate level. When they write their thesis and eventually their dissertation for their PhD, thesis being for master's, the students never ask. They're only regurgitating whatever they're being told, whatever they read. Their individual thought process is not even it. So the point is saying that's just the thought process. So let alone our individual spirit and who we are as a person. So when we use the mitzvot and we use the technology of the Torah and tefillin and kosher and kashrut and everything, that doesn't mean that we have to wear black and white or be a part of some sect. Here Israel is very much like that, but that's not what happened on Mount Sinai. These were people who were living in a state of slavery that wanted to transform their thinking into the highest reality, and so Hashem gave them technology to do that, and eventually it allowed them to go into the land of Israel with the consciousness of Israel, as the Kabbalah says. Yes, there's a physical land, but there's a consciousness of Israel.
So let's talk about the consciousness of Israel. We are here now in the old city of Jerusalem.
Yeah.
And this beautiful house that we were gifted by great philosopher Elaine Michel.
Oh, wow.
He was doing here for 20 years interfaith spiritual explorations between imams, rabbis, priests, yogis. He's a friend of the Dalai Lama. And I read the books and I see many similarities, right? Like the Muslims celebrate Nabi Musa, the prophet, the big prophet of the Jewish people. They celebrate him. They celebrate David. They have translated Tehillim. And there is a lot of, it's like I always say, if an eagle comes from south to north once a year for 5 minutes during lunchtime, he would think this is a utopia over here.
Yeah.
Everybody eating together, drinking from the same sink, throwing the garbage in the same can, and kind of like money moves around.
Yeah.
Yeah. At the same time, there is another yam happening here that, everybody think that this place is theirs. We are not going to go there. This is not why we opened this place. There's enough podcasts talking about what we call the conflict.
Yeah.
What we want to talk about is like, for example, when you come here, there is a saying of the sages that just being around the old city of Jerusalem make you smarter.
Oh, wow.
You know, the technologies that you're talking about, you get more access to them.
Big time.
What type of things changed in you when you moved to Jerusalem? What you felt that changed in you too? We will ask you.
Yeah, you know, I had the merit to, when I came to Jerusalem, like, it was interesting. I think about it in retrospect. You know, like when I was in Jerusalem, like I met this girl. When I was in America, I met this girl, and I thought we were going to get married, whatever, and it didn't work out. And I was very, very hurt by it, that experience. But the beauty of that experience was that when I came to Israel, when I came to Jerusalem, I came with like such an open heart. I came with a broken heart, and I was like I was like in a way like crying out to God, like for like answers. And I felt like when that whole experience happened in LA, I felt like totally alone. Even the Rabbanim that I knew, I just felt like alone. And so when I came here, it was really about this, like in a way, like this covenant with me and God. And so I had the merit to have that experience, which is an interesting thing. Who thinks a breakup would be a merit? But then also coming in learning. And so I was able to take that energy and that broken heart and put it into learning and learning about God and learning about the system and learning about myself and putting that into it. So it literally created an entirely new person. You know, like the way I look at life, the way I look at myself is transformed. I don't even remember the person that I was in Los Angeles. It's like I converted all over again.
Beautiful. And your experience? Moving in here?
Yeah.
From Texas?
Well, originally, yes. I think one of my most powerful experiences was when I was in seminary the first year that I was here, 3 years ago, before I made Alia. I was taking a Shabbat almost every different place, a different area of Israel, just to get to know the land and the people and the culture, and just to really get to know what I was getting myself into, because I wanted to make Aliyah, but I wanted to make sure I was an educated decision, because I don't know everything about Israel at the time. But then I was like, wow, this, like, I couldn't live with it. I went back to Scotland and I was thinking, I really need to be here. Like, I can't imagine a life where there's no spirituality. Like, even though it's a beautiful, gorgeous area, there's mountains and wonderful, like, everything, like black sand beaches, all kinds of things there. And the water is gorgeous, and there's like dolphins and this horizon, but you don't have Hashem like in the same way. Like, it's not our land. It's not like a place where you feel like you can feel a kedusha. And I really miss that. I miss the community and the people and the connections you make when you're in Israel. And one thing that I remember distinctly was like one of my favorite memories of being here and like connecting to Hashem through this area, especially in Jerusalem, is to know that like everything was already written, and just like everything that continues in life has already happened before. It's like it's not nothing new under the sun. It's just written, but like. And just like recognizing that everything that I'm experiencing is like a new wave of consciousness, a new wave of reality that I can see through my experiences, through like coming to the land and making Aliyah, all these things. It makes me feel like I can really connect to Hashem on a whole new level, and I'm also, like Him said, I feel like I'm a completely different person, and it's really created my spirituality at such a heightened level that like I'm not even recognizable.
You felt that the moon met the sun.
In a sense.
Exactly.
And now it's all
like
aligned.
What they call man and wife is like the same thing. They call the wife the moon, like reflecting the sun, light of the husband. It's like a thing.
And Av means father.
Yep.
And Yud Hey, 15.
Yeah, well, nice.
You can't say it, but
Yeah,
you're always switching it. Wow, beautiful. So, Mind of the Black Jew.
Yeah.
It's a Musar Hashem.
Wow. It's already mind-blowing.
Yeah, that's good.
Without even reading it.
And the NFT, like people see it's just, at some point it's like, we got caught in the 3 weeks. It's not, you want to like wait to the right energy.
Do you think the cryptocurrency is an experience of the fifth kind, in a way, in money world?
I think...
Kind of like bringing it to the non-materialistic world, because it all started with gold.
Yeah.
And we were like, there is entropy of gold. This is why we can, trust it.
Yeah.
If you have gold and you keep it safe, and if somebody steals it from you, they are going to be the next king.
Yeah.
And then we moved to money, which the entropy of the money is the trust that you have on the Federal Reserve, that they are not going to print trillions of dollars whenever they want.
Yeah, which they do.
Which they do.
Yeah.
Now we move to a new type of entropy that we built, a type of a robot that you cannot change it, that have a very, that have an entropy, whether it's Bitcoin or any coin have a limited amount or that they release every year or that they initially release. And now we have NFT, which is literally taking products to the point that they are an entropy. Because you says that I have this book, and how do you trust this technology?
Well, the thing is like, think about it. Yesterday we had a group of business people go up to space, right? You saw that, they went up to space. Yeah. And you think about that, it's like, what is Hashem telling us right now? Like with cryptocurrency, these different things, it's like, I feel like we're in the era now where whatever reality you truly desire, you can create it with your mind and manifest it physically. If you want to go to space, think about it. Our parents used to read books, sci-fi books about going to space and at night and space people and all these types of things and space shuttles. That's a reality now. Now it's very expensive to do it, but over the next 10 years, it's going to get much, much cheaper.
Yeah, it's going to be like $10,000.
Yeah, exactly, if that, right? And so the point is just saying that like now we could start imagining a reality of like what it's like to live in space, what it's like to create a new economy in space, and what it is like to, what types of resources, natural resources that exist in space, and these asteroids and comets and different planets and different, so it's a completely new reality. And I think cryptocurrency, is like the expression of that, of like saying like, okay, wait, I want to create my own currency, and if you have enough desire, a million people will use it, and that's what Bitcoin was, and so, but I have that same ability to support, all of us have the same ability, so I think we're in the era where thought and manifestation are literally like, the sun and the moon on Tu B'Av. It's like, it's literally united. And it's like right now, like you have the ability to touch thousands of people, millions of people, whatever you just, So I just think it's really about us cleansing ourselves of the old way of thinking, the old versions of ourselves, and allowing a new person to evolve, that additional fifth column person that exists within us, to emerge, so we could really take advantage of this energy that exists. Because that space shuttle yesterday to me represented an energy that exists in the world that didn't exist before, and that energy is available to all of us. And it's just about how much are we willing to let go of the person we thought we were, and to accept the new version of ourselves, to like plug into this greater reality that we have in front of us now.
Yeah, you reminded me the root race of Madame Barbitsky.
Okay.
She's, now we are in the Aryan era, and we're going to the Homo Spiritualis, she called it.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and it's been taken to many routes that were not nice during history, because that's what the problem with that is, these theories of race.
Exactly.
Are always can be twisted because they are not defined mathematically as other religions or other mysticism, and then it's like, but in general, yeah, the going from a materialistic person, the ruler of Earth, to an interdimensional creature that can live in parallel in multiple, realms of universes and existence, and maybe more like our fathers that were like being able to communicate with other entities, which brings me to, I'm not raising this subject all the time, but I think it's a hot subject right now. The Pentagon released few videos of what they called UAPs, unidentified aerial objects, what we used to call UFOs, whatever. Some people say it's just garbage from space. some people say, but out of the 100 and something videos, they can explain only one. What do you think about those phenomena? Have you ever?
Yeah, I mean, everyone grew up in America and knew about UFOs and Roswell and shit things. I think the maybe the message we could take from that is that there are things that are happening around us that we have not, as a human society, been able to put definitions on. And even not just in space, even in the ocean.
By the way, as we speak about it, we have the bells.
Yeah, exactly.
There are 43 churches in the whole city.
Wow.
Continue.
But even in the sea, there's so many creatures that we have not put. I think there's thousands of creatures that live underneath the water that we've not been able to put names to. So I think Hollywood has made it into these characters and this and E.T. and all these different types of things. But I think that the core idea is that when you think about when the Torah says when the world was created, Adam Rishon gave names to all of creation, to all the animals, everything. And that allowed him to conceptualize the world and eventually lead him to realize that he needed a mate himself, right? After he had a broad understanding of creation, then he realized oh wait, I'm missing something. So in a way, when you think about space and outer space reality, as we become more comfortable and familiar with it, we will be able, as a collective man, give definitions to this new reality and then be able to eventually learn more about ourselves as a human society. And I think that's going to move us away from ideas like racism and war and if we're thinking about going to Mars and Venus and Saturn and and what type of different changes. Because they have genomics now, which is the ability to affect the human genome and manipulate our structure and even plants and animals. So maybe giving us a propensity to live on other planets where they said physically we weren't able to do. So when you start thinking about that reality, a lot of these things become very small. Of oh my God, you speak a different language than I do, and oh my God, you worship God in a different way that I do. What is it going to look like on Mars?
It's humbling.
Yeah, exactly.
It's humbling to know that there are things that we cannot even explain or express.
That's the key.
And that's important. Well, it's been such a great honor to have you guys here.
Thank you.
And probably next time we're going to meet, you're going to have beautiful new projects and experiences. And מה שנקרא, שיהיה happy to באב.
Yeah, thank you.
And happy new anniversary.
Thank you.
Mordechai, Tzipporah, Ariel.
Perfect.
All right.